Today happens to be Tisha B'Av at the moment. As you can see, I'm actually on the balcony, just sitting on the floor at the moment. Was in synagogue last night, synagogue this morning, and one thing that we recite in the service inside the synagogue, especially last night and this morning, happens to be Kinnot, various different lamentations. We recite the Megillat Eika, also one of the 5 Megillot inside the Torah, Nevi'im and Ketuvim respectively. But many communities would say different kinds of Kinnot. Some synagogues might be sitting on the floor for 5, 6, 7 hours. Some synagogues might only be 2 or 3 hours over here. So I daven usually in a Sephardi synagogue just near my house. So usually we are sitting for about 3 hours, maybe less than some of the, let's say, Ashkenazi communities. Obviously every different synagogue has its own different customs and different minhag, but we know that the original Kinnot, let's say, that we say were recited by all communities, whether they were from European countries or from North African countries. They were written originally after the destruction of the first and second temples, Bet HaMikdashes respectively. Those were written by various different rabbis from all over the spectrum. Now, I think it was, just reading a note here from, I think, a questionnaire from Rabbi Gad Buskila, who happens to be a prominent rabbi. He says that the original, let's say, machzor for the Sephardi community of Tisha B'Av included both Eika, obviously all communities would say Megillat Eika, and the Kinnot are about the destruction of both the temples, naturally like all the communities. It also would originally include the Kinnots written by the rabbis of both Spain and Portugal about a century before the expulsion from Spain. After, this was probably in the late 1300s, after 1492, about 100 Kinnots were composed describing the atrocities of Spanish Inquisition and expulsion from Spain. And they were added to this machzor, to the liturgy of Tisha B'Av. Now the Kinnot recited by Jews from the Persian community, that's my community originally. We on both sides actually come from Iran, and Syrian Jews might be shorter compared to the Spanish Jews and Portuguese Jews, let's just say. They didn't necessarily add those Kinnots because they didn't experience the Spanish expulsion, the people that were in Iran. Mind you, many people would move to Iran after they were in Spain, I do think also, if I'm not mistaken. There's a theory that part of my family originated from Spain. Now, unfortunately, the Kinnots from Spain obviously are very, very tragic, detailing the way the Jews were tortured and unfortunately burned to the stake over there. There's one kinnah written by a famous rabbi who we've spoken about before, Rabbi Moshe Nahori. He describes how the Spanish oppressors destroyed homes and properties, unfortunately murdered the Chachamim, the great rabbis, and starved the Jewish people and abused unfortunately the young women. Another famous rabbi, Rabbi Baruch Toledano, one of the great Moroccan rabbis of the last 150 years, compares the disasters in Spain to the disasters during the Khurban Beit HaMikdash. Obviously, 150 to 200 years ago, communities in Morocco and Tunisia added Kinnot of their own, let's say, tragedies that the Arabs had perpetrated in their own communities, atrocities, such as unfortunately women that were kidnapped, synagogues were razed to the ground, entire communities being expelled. We've seen some of this on October the 7th, unfortunately. Our Kinnot today are, let's say, divided into Kinnot Hagdolot, Kinnot that speak of events about the Bet HaMikdash, and Kinnot Ktanot, which are written in a smaller type and speak, let's say, of the events of the Spanish Inquisition and expulsion and more recent events. Some of these Kinnots were written as only in the last couple of years even. I think obviously in Eretz Yisrael, a Kinnot was written about, unfortunately there was a murder of Rabbi Elazar Abu Chatzera, was murdered in the year 2011. I think that was quite recently. There was another Kinnot, for example, was written about the expulsion from Gush Katif, and we see what a disaster that has been in Jewish history. Now there's a special Kinnot that we were singing today. It's called Madua B'Le'el Pesach. This is, we were singing in our synagogue today. It's, we're not too sure necessarily who the author is, but it's very unique. Tisha B'Av falls out on the same night of the week as Pesach that precedes it. This Kinnah takes the 4 questions of Pesach and transmutes them to Tisha B'Av. It asks, why is this night different from all other nights? On Pesach we eat maror. Tonight we sit on the floor and endure merumrim, bitterness. On Pesach we sit at a beautiful table. Tonight we sit on the floor and cry. On Pesach we drink 4 cups of wine and make berachot, blessings. Tonight we read Megillat Eika. We all sing it together, and it's very, very powerful. And that's what very much we're singing tonight and last night and this morning inside the synagogue also. There's various different, all communities have important Kinnot, whichever they are from. Let's just say the Sephardic poets concentrated more about creating Kinnot that rhymed and that included easily more, maybe you could say, easily understood descriptions of events that will cause people to mourn, like mothers, unfortunately, that were tormented and dragged away by the enemy in front of their children. It's similar, let's just say, Rav Gad Butskil actually says, the Zemirot of Shabbat. The Sephardic Zemirot are comprised, let's say, of more, you could say, easy words in of itself. And most of Kinnot in the Sephardi community, the Shliach Tzibor, the Chazan, chants the first paragraph, and then everyone else follows them. With some of, let's say, the more newer Kinnot that might have been added, are harder to sing, the leader will begin, and other people who know how to sing them will then take over. In other cases, the leader will chant a paragraph, and the congregation itself will also then join in afterwards. Obviously, these melodies are very, very important, and we know we're in Tisha B'Av at the moment, and we know we're coming. Let's hope we won't come into Elul and say Slichot. Let's hope we'll see the rebuilding of the third Bet HaMikdash today, but only in a matter of days. Let's say 20 days time, 21 days time, we're going to recite Slichot for 40 days from Rosh Chodesh Elul all the way till Yom Kippur. And then we say of a lot of different poems and different compositions, let's just say, which were written by many of the rabbis over past 1,000+ years. So let's make this a meaningful Tisha B'Av. If you're saying Kinnot, do it with meaning, try and understand it, read English translations if you've got available, and let's see. Hopefully there'll be the rebuilding of the third Bet HaMikdash now.